The chamber of the Galactic Council echoed with polished authority, walls of obsidian alloy, lit with soft pulses of blue from stars that no longer existed. Delegates of over 400 species gathered, their body types so diverse the translators could barely keep pace. There were gelatinous masses in containment fields, rigid insectoids chittering on vibrating pads, avian diplomats blinking in rapid cycles, and photonic entities flickering silently in coded rhythms. But none held the center like the humans once did. Now the seats reserved for the Terran Union were empty, glaring, offensively vacant. Councillor Raxer of the Velnari clacked his mandibles. Let the record show that, by a majority vote of 392 to 17, the human species is hereby exiled from the Galactic Compact. Effective immediately. No applause followed. None was expected. This wasn't a celebration, it was a surgical removal. They were unpredictable, came a muttered voice. Too violent, too independent, and far too successful. Words buzzed like wasps. Even after Earth's formal induction to the Council, the Terrans had refused to kneel. They innovated recklessly, colonized aggressively, and retaliated disproportionately to any insult or injury. The final straw? The Extari incident. A minor trade conflict escalated when an Extari patrol detained a human freighter over illegal terraforming components. In less than a week, an entire Extari moon outpost was reduced to ash. Not by a fleet. Not by a war. Just a single Terran deep strike corvette. The message was clear. Insult Earth and Earth would erase your bloodline with terrifying precision. So the Council did what ancient, self-important bodies often did. They struck first, believing bureaucracy could tame lightning. Exile them. Deny them trade. Cut off diplomatic channels. Seize their colonies beyond the treaty spheres. It was supposed to cripple the upstarts. But exile did not go the way the Council expected. Earth's response, silence. For 3 solar months after the vote there was nothing. No retaliation. No threats. No media outcry. Earth was quiet. Too quiet. Councillor Killerin of the Lissari, the glowing serpentine species who once served as close allies to Earth, tried to open diplomatic channels. Her message was returned in 2 seconds. Not acknowledged. Not ignored. Returned. Blocked. Earth had severed all communications. Not with hate, not with fanfare. With disinterest. It was as if they'd simply moved on. The first real sign of movement came when the starship Windsong, a Viacari explorer, reported strange readings from the Curious Drift. Unusual tachyon pulses. Structures the size of moons but with no known construction signature. Weeks later the Windsong vanished. No distress signal. Just silence. By then whispers had spread across the galactic trade networks. Earth was building something. Big. In places they were never supposed to be. And the scariest part? They didn't care who knew. Meanwhile in the Sol system, Admiral Dana Rourke stood aboard the orbital drydock known as Prometheus Chain, gazing at the void through a hexagonal viewport. A glowing skeleton of hull plating floated outside, suspended by magravs. Shipyard arms stitched neutronium along its spine. The vessel taking shape wasn't a warship. It was a message. 3 years ahead of schedule, murmured Fleet Engineer Obiokin, a modified human AI housed in a quantum reactive drone frame. Council exile might have been the best thing that happened to us. Dana didn't smile. She never did anymore. We're done playing their game, she said. No more delays. No more diplomacy. No more compromises to fit into their twisted hierarchy. Obiokin whirred slightly. You sound like Director Levon. At that, Dana smirked. God help me. Director Elias Levon had been the mastermind behind Earth's off-grid expansion. Before exile, he'd been preparing contingency plans. After exile, he activated them. Not just ships. Not just new colonies. New rules. We tried to be their equal, Dana muttered, turning back to the massive vessel. They saw us as a virus. Well, let's give them something to fear. Terraforming ghost zones. While the Council bickered in comfort, Earth did the impossible. Terraforming a Class 4 death world usually took decades, even with combined galactic tech. Terrans did it in 5 years, on 3 different worlds, simultaneously. Using weathercrafting satellites, quantum-seeded growth accelerators, and drones powered by black box tech no one had seen before. Oh, no one knew. Where were they getting the resources? That was the real question. Because after exile, humanity had no trade routes, no supply chains and no allies. Yet freighters, human freighters, kept appearing in neutral zones, hauling exotic materials from forgotten systems. pushing into places even scavenger guilds feared to chart. Rumors spread of humans mining neutron stars, harvesting energy from dark matter anomalies, even forming temporal factories on unstable time rifts. Impossible. And yet, ships kept launching from Terran space. Slick, silent, radiating power. They bore no flags, no call signs, no transponder codes. Just the same chilling phrase stamped into every hull. We remember. Galactic reaction, denial then fear. The Council declared the sightings fake. Propaganda. Pirates masquerading as humans to spook trade guilds. Until the Hecari supremacy lost an entire fleet near the Veil Nebula. Thousands dead. No survivors. The only evidence was a scrambled distress call repeating one phrase. It wasn't a fleet, it was one ship. One ship. And it tore through us like. Transmission cut. The wreckage bore strange incisions, heat scoring and molecular unraveling no known weapon could achieve. Counselor Raxer watched the footage in his private chambers, mandibles twitching in denial. They can't have developed such tech so fast. Not without outside help. Not without. He paused. Unless, the humans had never shown their full hand before exile. And now there was nothing holding them back. Inside Terran High Command, Director Elias Levon stood before a holographic display, his eyes hollow from sleepless weeks. Dozens of red stars flickered across the map. Former Council-aligned systems. Each one vulnerable. Behind him, a circle of human leaders, military, civilian, and synthetic, debated the next steps. We don't want war, said one. We don't need war, replied Levon. But we will expand. What about diplomacy? Levon turned. They burned that bridge. Now they get to watch what walks out of the fire. He tapped the display. Unstoppable. Dozens of new systems lit up in Terran gold. We don't conquer, he said quietly. We offer. Refuge. Knowledge. Safety. But they will come to us. Not the other way around. And species did come. Quietly at first, scientists, refugees, outcasts. Then entire planets declared neutrality, shifting away from Council law to join Earth's new network. Not a government. Not an empire. A movement. One that spread faster than any war. Because Earth didn't just build ships and worlds. They built hope. And the Council had none left to offer. The awakening of forgotten titans. Deep in the void, human exploration teams uncovered ruins older than galactic memory. Machines slumbering in black holes. Beings sealed in quantum prisons. Knowledge forbidden even to the ancients. And Earth? Earth woke them. Not recklessly. Not arrogantly. But as students. Earth didn't fear forgotten things. Earth had become the thing the galaxy forgot to prepare for. When the Arc of Amara activated for the first time in 10,000 years, a shockwave of gravitational energy reached 3 Council sectors. Astrogation networks crashed. Time fields flickered. And from the void, a signal pulsed. Humanity has accessed domain protocols. The gate is opening. No one knew what that meant. But the Council's best scholars, those not already defecting to Earth's archives, looked pale. Because the domain protocols were a myth. A legend of ancient galactic seeds left behind by the firstborn civilizations. Technology so advanced it could reshape reality. And Earth had just taken the first step. Closing, the fracture begins. Counselor Killeran watched the crowd outside her embassy on Reveal 2. Thousands of beings, once loyal compact citizens, now wore Terran sigils. Not as conquerors. As believers. They weren't forced. They came willingly. The Council hadn't just exiled humanity. They'd unleashed it. Like damming a river, only to discover it had carved a canyon elsewhere. And now, that river flowed across the stars. Faster. Stronger. Reveal 2, the first break. The Reveal 2 sky hung heavy with the weight of history. For over 6 centuries, the Lissari Confederation had been a founding member of the Galactic Council, a civilization of wisdom, diplomacy, and rigid neutrality. But neutrality only held value when both sides cared to honor it. On the morning of the first shift cycle, Lissari citizens gathered in the plaza of Eler's Spire, once a monument to interstellar unity. Now it bore a new sigil, the Terran Triarch. It wasn't flown by force. It wasn't burned into their architecture like conquest. It was raised by children, volunteers, scientists and workers who had stopped believing in a council that answered new threats with old procedures. In her private chamber high above the crowd, Counselor Killeran paced the obsidian floor, her glowing form dimming with distress. Her aides whispered about treason, about expulsion, about consequences. She ignored them. On her screen was a direct message from the Terran director himself. "We don't seek dominion. But we won't stop moving forward. You're welcome to come with us. Or be left behind." Killeran knew what came next. She walked to the balcony. Thousands of her people looked up. Not waiting for orders. Waiting for permission. And with a single flick of her luminous tail, she gave it. "We withdraw from the compact," she said, voice magnified across the plaza. "Lasari joins the Terran path." The crowd erupted, not in riot or fear, but relief. Some wept. Some cheered. And some began immediately uploading data archives into the new Terran network, built on quantum filament relays faster than anything the Council had allowed. Another world lost. But not to war. To humanity's vision. The Council's panic. The news hit the Council like a plasma detonation. Lasari wasn't just a member. It was a keystone, a mediator species with influence in over 90 border systems. How did they turn her? Raxor spat, pacing furiously. "They didn't," growled Councillor Ulmut of the Voruan Dominion. His scaled fists clenched. "They offered her something better." "Loyalty is not bought like metal," Raxor snapped. "No," Ulmut said. "But inspiration? That's priceless. And humans know how to inspire." Across the chamber, a silent alert pulsed. 7 systems in defection. 3 embassies vacated. 2 Council worlds reporting internal uprisings. It wasn't war. It was conversion. The Terran message spreading through systems like wildfire. "You've served their order. Now come build a new one." The kind of message only someone free of the old chains could send. And the Council, bound by rules and rot, had no answer. A weapon with no name. While diplomats argued, a secret alliance convened in the shadows of the null orbit, an uncharted, shielded sector accessible only via phase shift. They called themselves the Concord of Silence, a desperate coalition of 3 of the galaxy's oldest powers, the Voruan, the Ixtari, and the Kelsarian Matronate. Long rivals now united by a single goal. Stop the humans. Not because they wanted blood, but because they feared something deeper. Obsolescence. "They move like they've glimpsed the future," said High Admiral Kesra of the Ixtari. "And we're nothing more than memory to them." "They speak to machines older than our myths," hissed Lord Voran of the Kelsari. "They walk among gods and offer treaties." General Ingar of the Voruan slammed a hollow stone onto the table. "So we build a fleet. Quietly. Beyond Council eyes. Not bound by law or honor. A new kind of fleet. One built from scavenged tech, black sites, and forbidden energy cores. No call signs. No allegiances. Only one purpose. Intercept humanity. Break their momentum. And bury their future." It would become known, whispered only in the darkest corners of the data sphere, as the Ghost Armada. The human strategy, expansion without borders. Back in Terran space, Admiral Dana Rourke stood before a projection of the spiral arm systems once marked red now pulsed gold. Worlds once isolated now linked by Terran jump lattices, forming a growing constellation of influence. She tapped her neural uplink. A list unfolded. Vorta 3, Bioharvest Colony, population 2.7 million, now exporting life-extending algae to defected systems. Delta Omega Relay, communications outpost offering unrestricted data archives. Blackstone Cradle, artificial habitat constructed in a neutron storm. Training center for multi-species youth cadets. Each one not just a colony. A beacon. "Every time we build," Dana said to her staff, "the Council loses a reason to exist." Obiokin hovered beside her. "Their only play now is sabotage." She nodded. "Let them come. But they'll find we don't defend like they do. Because humanity wasn't building castles. They were planting seeds. The first strike. It began in the shadows. A Terran colony ship, the Radiant Dawn, vanished while en route to the Veilfront cluster. No SOS. No debris. Just gone. A week later, a trade convoy entering the Brosken Rift found its escort vessels shredded. No energy signatures. No survivors. Then came the hacked broadcast, looped endlessly across pirate channels. "Turn back. The void is not yours. The silence watches." The Ghost Armada had begun its campaign. It didn't seek war. It struck surgically, supply depots, research stations, relays. No trace left behind except encrypted scars and ship logs. The message was clear. Don't follow the Terran path. Or vanish. But Earth was already prepared. Director Levon stood before the Council of Reclamation. His inner circle of AI-augmented tacticians, gene-tuned analysts, and alien defectors. The reports were grim. but not surprising. They've built their own boogeymen, said Commander Ilera, once of the Kelsari Navy. But they're still thinking in linear threats. Fleets. Weapons. Fear. And that's their mistake, Levon replied. He gestured to a projected map that didn't show territory or fleets. It showed ideas. Culture drift. Knowledge migration. Societal alignment. They're fighting to stop ships. We're spreading a civilization. He turned to Dana. It's time we gave them something impossible to hide. Project Echelon. Hidden within the star-forged storms of the Hellion expanse was Earth's greatest gamble. Project Echelon. A vessel? Not quite. A living archive, a mobile civilization station capable of housing entire populations, artificial biospheres, AI libraries, interspecies councils, and self-replicating terraforming engines. The blueprint wasn't conquest. It was replacement. When a system chose to join the Terran path, Echelon would arrive. Deploy. Offer instant infrastructure, defense, education, medicine within hours. No bureaucracy. No delay. No politics. Just transformation. By the time the Council sends a fleet, said Ilera, we'll have turned their colony into a golden world. And they'll look like monsters for attacking it, Levon added. The plan wasn't to win a war. It was to make war impossible. Because you can't shoot what your people have already joined. The Ghost Armada finds Echelon. They tried. The Ghost Armada intercepted an Echelon station en route to Miraxis Prime, a Council frontier world that had requested Terran aid after a planetary quake shattered its core infrastructure. 4 Ghost vessels engaged. Within 90 seconds, 3 vanished. Not destroyed, scrambled. Their atoms unraveled mid-maneuver, as if reality itself had glitched. The 4th fled. It arrived days later at a Concord listening post, its crew mute. One message was recovered from the damaged logs. We attacked a city that talks to the stars, and the stars spoke back. Fractures within the Council. Counselor Raxer pounded the central dais. You said they'd be vulnerable. They were, shouted Almut. Until your bureaucratic delays let them rise. The Kelsari are no longer reporting fleet movements, Killeran added coldly. And several Council worlds are refusing to pay security dues. They're not our citizens anymore, spat Raxer. They're infected. But his words had no weight now. Not in a chamber with empty chairs multiplying each day. Some representatives no longer showed up at all. Why attend a funeral when the corpse was already rotting? A message broadcast across all channels. Then came the broadcast. Hijacked into every channel, Council, pirate, private, encrypted. No signal could block it. A human stood there, Director Levon himself. No weapons. No anger. Just calm. You exiled us. Thought you were ending something. But exile is just freedom without permission. We didn't rise despite you. We rose because you made it impossible for us to stay. To those still holding on to the old galaxy, we aren't coming for you. But we're leaving the door open. Join us. Or watch from behind your borders. Just know, we've already passed you by. The message ended with the Triarch emblem forming slowly in white and gold, over a background of starlight. No threats. No promises. Just certainty. The Concord fractures. The moment Levon's broadcast ended, something cracked. Not just in politics or allegiances but in the psyche of the old galaxy. The Council chamber stood in stunned silence. Not a single being moved. No rebuttal. No dismissive scoff. Because even the most cynical counselor had felt something crawl into their chest. Not fear. Irrelevance. They didn't just bypass us, murmured Counselor Vera of the Tormek Clade. They rendered us obsolete. Raxer didn't speak. Not because he was lost for words, but because he realized the chamber wasn't full anymore. Half the seats were dark. Half of those still present weren't even paying attention. Data screens glowed in secret as more and more delegates accessed the Terran Path's open-source galactic infrastructure. Quantum archives, medical blueprints, economic templates, linguistic accelerators. The knowledge Earth once begged to share, now offered freely to anyone who asked. And those who had once mocked Earth for being young, impulsive, and barbaric, were now downloading Terran seed tech in private. The Council wasn't falling. It was hollowing out. The Ghost Armada's dilemma. Deep in the null orbit, the Ghost Armada stood silent and still, anchored within the gravity shadow of a collapsed star. There was no light here. No signal bleed. Just whispers of what was to come. Admiral Kesra of the Ixtari leaned over the tactical display, surrounded by leaders who were losing their grip on a crumbling strategy. We lost 3 dreadnoughts to that Echelon station, Kesra hissed. Whatever defense matrix they're running, it isn't physics-bound. We've spent years in the void, muttered General Angar of the Vorwin. Training in silence. Forged from secrets the Council outlawed. And still, they're 10 steps ahead. And yet, said Lord Vorin of the Kelsari Matronate, we cannot retreat. Not now. If we do, they win everything. Without firing a single damn shot. They had one chance left. One target. Not a colony. Not a fleet. But Earth itself. The final strike. Operation Eclipse Veil. The Ghost Armada's final mission was designed in shadows. Operation Eclipse Veil, a total strike on Earth's solar system, using phase-jump annihilation torpedoes, gravitic imploders and dark matter disruptors designed to collapse planetary magnetic shields in seconds. It wasn't conquest. It wasn't war. It was erasure. But first they had to get in. Earth's defenses weren't like before. No wall of ships. No orbital gun belts. They had something worse. A quiet sky. Ghost Armada scouts entered soul space under quantum cloak, and found nothing. No fleets. No sentries. No resistance. Something's wrong, said Captain Silhan aboard the Black Talon. Even Earth had patrols. They approached cautiously. Closer. Closer. And then, Captain, look at the star. Sol, Earth's sun, shifted. Not in color. Not in motion. In structure. The readings were wrong. Impossible. A normal G-type star could not emit harmonic frequencies or pulse-tide gravimetric radiation. Unless it's artificial. No one spoke. They rebuilt their sun. And then the trap closed. The star wakes. Operation Eclipse Veil didn't fail because Earth had fleets. It failed because Earth had evolved past the need for them. As the Ghost Armada approached, the Soul Star emitted a pulse, short, clean, and nearly imperceptible. But the effect was catastrophic. Every phase drive in the Armada detonated internally. The Black Talon tore itself apart in a silent burst of inverted time energy. The Fong of Kovar folded into a non-Euclidean fissure and simply ceased to exist. The rest? Disabled. Powerless. Dead in space. In their final moments, the captains realized what had happened. Earth didn't build a defense fleet. They turned their entire star system into a weapon. And then came the voice, not through comms but injected directly into consciousness. You arrived through the void. But the void answers to us now. Earth responds at last. For the first time since their exile, Earth sent a direct message to the Council. Not a warning. Not a threat. A recording. It showed the Ghost Armada. Dozens of elite warships. Paralyzed. Caught in orbit around Earth like puppets with their strings cut. Then the feed panned to Luna's surface. Thousands of alien survivors stood in silence, unharmed. Released. No interrogation. No execution. Just sent back. You feared our rise, came Levin's voice. Now fear this. We have no interest in ruling your council. But we do have rules of our own. You may threaten us once. But there will be no second time. Echelon expands. The destruction of the Ghost Armada wasn't just a military turning point. It was cultural. Within cycles, entire council species abandoned their oaths. Universities deleted council core history from their curriculum. Trade routes redirected toward Terran path systems. Even council military officers quietly requested asylum under Earth's new protocols. But most shockingly, some former council races began building their own echelon stations. Earth had released the designs. Free. No strings. They weren't building an empire. They were planting civilization like seeds. The war was over. And Earth had won by refusing to fight it. Raxor's last speech. The once feared counselor Raxor stood alone in the central chamber, mandibles slow and weary. He looked around the emptiness, the hollow seats, the dark screens, the dust gathering under centuries-old law tablets. He finally understood. They hadn't exiled Earth. They had exiled themselves from the future. This council, he rasped, was built to protect order. And we mistook innovation for chaos, vision for rebellion, hope for danger. He looked toward the blank display once bearing Earth's emblem. They asked to belong. We told them no. Now we beg to follow. The human paradox. Centuries later, alien philosophers debated the Terran paradox. How did a species known for war, rage, and defiance become the architects of the most inclusive and advanced society in galactic history? The answer lay not in their strength, but in their refusal to stop moving. Earth didn't need vengeance. They needed freedom. And when they got it, they didn't conquer. They created a new council, built without a throne, The chamber wasn't made of marble or obsidian. It wasn't carved from asteroid stone or floating atop a moon's gravity well. The new council, if it could even be called that, stood beneath a living sky in the open air of Gaian Prime, the first fully terraformed moon built by interspecies cooperation. Here, beneath the great aurora spiraling overhead, leaders from over 300 civilizations stood equal, not seated in tiers of power but encircling a flame. A Terran tradition. Ancient. Simple. No one presided. No one gave orders. Ideas were exchanged in pure form, translated instantly across languages, memories, and neural interfaces. There was no agenda. Only a single shared question. What comes next? The last starfarers. High above Gaian Prime in the stratosphere, a vessel slowly orbited, a ship unlike any the galaxy had ever known. The astral seed. It was the culmination of Earth's vision, part ship, part world, part evolving archive. Powered by artificial quantum suns and guided by a living AI grown from the memories of Earth's poets, soldiers, and thinkers. Its purpose? To explore the uncharted edge of the galaxy, not to claim but to connect. To bring knowledge, empathy, and possibility to the forgotten. It was crewed not just by humans, but by volunteers from dozens of species once sundered by council rule, now reborn as something greater. The galaxy had watched Earth defend, innovate, and endure. Now it would watch Earth lead by leaving. Not to rule, but to remind everyone what stars are truly for. Whispers in the void. Some say that on the outer edge of mapped space, the astral seed encountered things older than time itself. Void serpents coiled in dying light, fragments of the first thought, and civilizations who had turned inward so deeply they forgot stars existed. And yet the ship passed unchallenged. Every time. Because it carried more than tech, more than minds. It carried the memory of becoming. And in the silence of deep space, when the stars whisper to each other in languages made of radiation and rhythm, one phrase repeats across the cosmos. They were exiled, and so they became infinite. The child and the flame. In the central archive dome of Gaian Prime, a child, barely 5 cycles old, approached the eternal flame. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered like the petals of a crystal orchid. Her eyes pulsed with inherited starlight from her ancestors. She looked up at the archivist, a synthetic entity bearing the voice of old Earth. Did the humans win? She asked. The archivist paused, then smiled. No. Humans don't win. They just refuse to lose. But they have all the worlds now, she said, confused. No, replied the archivist. They just gave everyone the tools to build their own. He gestured to the stars visible beyond the dome. That's the difference. Conquerors take. Creators share. The child nodded. And the flame burned a little brighter. The final counselor. Far beyond the core systems on what remained of the abandoned Galactic Council citadel, one figure still sat in the shadows. Old, forgotten, and broken. Counselor Raxer, once the voice of law, now the last echo of a system long extinguished. He spent his days watching transmissions, public and encrypted. Listening to Terran broadcasts, defected colony news, independent documentaries, even simple stories told by farmers on new hybrid worlds. He hadn't spoken in years. But one day, as the wind howled across the empty chamber, he whispered 4 words that traveled across no channel, recorded by no system. Just truth. They were never ours. Legacy in motion. Years turned to decades. Echelon stations became cities. Cities became civilizations. And the Terran path wasn't a nation or a government. It was a tide. A philosophy embedded in growth, freedom, and radical transparency. From time to time, old council systems attempted revivals. They failed. Not from attack. From disinterest. Because once you taste oxygen-rich air and unfiltered access to truth, bureaucracy tastes like ash. Humanity remembered. They were remembered not as tyrants. Not as gods. Not even as saviors. But as catalysts. The spark that relit the furnace of galactic wonder. Artists painted the Exodus flame, a symbol of Earth's rise from exile. Writers sang of the Ghost Armada's fall. Historians marked the year of disappearance, when Earth stopped sending instructions and began sending invitations. And every year across thousands of planets, in celebration or quiet memory, species would gather around a small flame. No speeches. No flags. Just one message spoken aloud in any language. We remember when the stars began to burn again. And you were there. If you stood among them now, dear listener, you wouldn't see soldiers or banners or monuments of power. You'd see children learning from alien mentors. You'd see trade handled with empathy, knowledge shared without cost. You'd see humanity, messy, fierce, compassionate, doing what it always did best. Surviving. Adapting. Rising. You'd see the galaxy changed, not because Earth demanded it, but because Earth showed everyone they could do it better. And if you ever find yourself lost out there, drifting in the void, unsure of where to go, just look for the flame. Earth lit it, and it never went out. End of section 4/end of story. If you want more stories like this, about humanity rewriting the rules, turning exile into triumph, and burning like fire across the stars, subscribe to the Void Narratives. New tales drop every cycle. We remember. Do you?